And there we go. We're recording. So welcome to Painting Through the Pandemic. I'm Shauna Sue from Crooked Door Studio. Studio's still closed, and that's okay. It's still physically closed, but because you guys continue to donate whatever you can here and there, I'm incredibly appreciative. That's enough that I'm still able to pay my rent at the studio and maintain that space until we're ready to open. Right now, looking like spring. I'm aiming for my birthday. I'm aiming for May 3rd. So we'll see. Hopefully this spring we'll be able to open back up once we get the Rona under control. So, which it's on the horizon, right? The light is on the horizon. I can see it. I hope you can see it too. I hope everybody's doing well, staying home, staying safe. So let's go through our supplies. That's the very first thing I like to do. I listed them out in the chat box. So if you're not sure if you have everything, read through that chat box. But I'm also going to take a few minutes, more than a few minutes. I'm such a liar. I'm going to take a few minutes, air quotes, and go through all the supplies that I have and show you how I have them all laid out. Can you tell I'm excited? Like I'm losing my words tonight. I'm happy to be back. Thank you guys for being here with me. Okay, first things first. I think I've said first things first like 5 times now. It's the excitement. Apron or paint shirt. The paint that we're using, the paint I'm using, the paint you're probably using is acrylic paint. It's water-based, water-soluble, but if you get it on your clothing and it dries, it's a real bear to get out, okay? So I know we're all painting at home. We're not painting in a studio where we can fling paint everywhere, right? We're all painting at home. So take a look around. Make sure you don't have anything really, really nice that you would be devastated if you got paint on. Acrylic paint, when it dries, it essentially turns to plastic. So you can peel it off your hands. You can wash it off your hands. It's a real bear to get out of fabric, to get out of fiber, because it turns into plastic and just gets in that fiber. So apron or a paint shirt. If you're someplace that you have a nice shirt on, you don't have a paint shirt, run to the bathroom real quick, flip your shirt inside out. It's much better to get paint on the inside than it is to get it on the outside, okay? And I've looked around, I've made sure my surroundings are secure, that it's really easy when we paint. When you have that brush, it's real easy to flick paint off your brush, off the edge of the canvas. So take a look around, make sure there's nothing you're super concerned about if you accidentally flick paint someplace, okay? So apron and or paint shirt. I have a 16 by 20 canvas. I'm using a stretched canvas. If you got supplies from the studio, this is what you're using. I love stretched canvases because you can paint the edges of them and then your painting is done when you're done with it. You don't have to frame it. You can if you want, but you don't have to. It's done, it's ready to hang or display wherever you want to put it. Our inspiration painting tonight it appears to be more vertical. It's pretty square, but it appears to be rectangular, more vertical. But this is your painting. I'm just here tonight to show you techniques and tips. So if you decide that you have a nice place like in a bookshelf or over your fireplace that will accommodate a landscape painting, flip your canvas and do the painting that way. It's up to you. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so I'm going to keep mine vertical because that's what I'm feeling tonight. As I look at our inspiration painting, I can kind of envision my tall trees. There are 5 cardinals on there, so I'll have room here for my 2 big cardinals, and then a little one up here, and a little one here, and another little one down there. So vertical portrait mode is what I'm feeling tonight, okay? So I referenced our inspiration painting. I have it here on my tablet. I like to have something to reference. And I think I put it on the picture. This isn't my painting, right? It's just something we found that we liked, that we want to try and copy this style. So I'm going to show you tips and techniques to try to copy this style, because that's how we learn as artists, right? We try different things, we try different techniques, we copy different things, and then we start to go out on our own and create our own works, okay? So our inspiration picture, you'll notice if you don't have the inspiration picture there in front of you, if you, thank you, Heather, I just saw your Venmo. If you look at the Zoom, you'll see two Shauna Sues. You'll see me here, but then the other Shauna Sue, that's me also. I have you on my laptop so I can see what everybody's doing down there on a bigger screen. But our inspiration painting is down there also as my profile picture if you need to reference it. Okay. Okay, so apron or a paint shirt, a canvas oriented in the way I want it oriented. I have half a cup of cold water, cool or cold, never warm or hot. It always wants to be cool or cold. And I like to use an old mason jar. As you start to paint and build your supplies up, an old coffee cup is lovely because you're less likely to knock it over as opposed to a plastic cup like a solo cup. And then I use it all the time. So I'm not going to make the mistake and accidentally drink my paint water because I have a dirty, filthy cup here, right? I'll see it as I get close to it. Can you tell artist problems, right? Don't drink the paint water. Nothing good comes from that. So I have that. I have some paper towels down here to blot my brushes on. I have 3 or 4 paper towels. Let's talk about brushes tonight. I have a big brush for my background. I love this big oval wash brush. Yours might be flat. That's okay. Just something big for the background. I also have a medium brush. I'm going to use a medium filbert. It's a filbert because it's rounded, but it's skinny. Again, yours might be flat. It's whatever medium brush makes you happy. And then a pointy brush. He doesn't look real pointy right now, but when I get him in the water, he'll be much pointier. So these 3 brushes, I'm going to be able to do my whole painting with these 3 brushes. While I'm not using those and I'm in the process of painting, I'm going to take them, put them in my water cup and leave them there. That's a really good reminder that when I'm done with the brush, I don't just lay it down. I put it back in the cup with its friends, right? That way it doesn't dry out and get gross. Other things you might have, this wasn't on the supply list, but I got it out just for giggles. A palette knife. I don't know, I may do something with it, I may not. If you don't have a palette knife, you can take, again, I may not even use it, but if you want to play with a palette knife, you don't have one, you can take a piece of junk mail that's like cardstock, and cut it into a square and use that as a palette knife to get this firm edge. Cut up a plate and use that. People asked me if you could use a butter knife. You could use the back edge of a butter knife. You don't want it to be serrated though. You want it to be just a nice firm, hard edge. You could use an old credit card or your driver's license, right? Again, I don't know if I'm going to use it, but I have it just in case. It's something that's in my paint bag, in my supply bag. Something else I keep in my supply bag is a paint marker. I keep a paint marker, a paint pen, because I'm really bad at signing my paintings with a brush. I just can't manipulate the brush to get my signature the way I want it. So I keep a paint pen just for that. And then paint. Let's talk about paint tonight. So if you got paint from the studio, you got them in these little containers. So you're going to take these and dump them out. Maybe not all of it, maybe just little bits. You can always add more onto your plate, right? And then as long as you snap the cap back on nice and tight, these will keep for weeks, months. As long as air doesn't get to them, they'll keep and you can use them for something else. So our colors tonight, I have blockout white, chrome orange, which the question came up, what is chrome orange? It's just what Blick calls one of their orange colors. It's just orange. Red. Tonight, it doesn't matter if you're using bright red or fire red. Doesn't matter. Just a red. I'm using bright red. Phthalo blue. Really, any blue will work. I like phthalo because I can get it nice and dark if I want. or I can use white and brighten it up. It's really, what's the word I'm looking for? Universal. I can do a lot of stuff with it. Controversial was all I could think, and I'm like, that's not the word. Brown. Any brown will work, but tonight I'm using burnt umber and then Mars Black. Okay, so that's what my paint palette looks like. Okay, so before we get started, I always like to show you the direction that we're going to go. I always like to know how we're going to work our way through this painting. Okay, so I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to break our canvas into sections for the background. So I'm going to do some stripes, some nice vertical stripes, and I'll show you all this step by step, but I like to let you know the direction I'm heading with this. So I'm going to do dark for my trees. I'm going to paint them in dark first. We'll layer the light on top. Then we'll paint the sky in. Then we'll play in the trees and we'll get that birch bark going there. And then we'll start to work closer to us, closer to the viewer. So once we have that background with the trees and the sky, then we'll get this branch. I like to say we'll Bob Ross it, right? We'll have this beautiful background and then we'll lay something right across it. We'll put this branch where our two cardinals are going to sit right across it. Put some other branches in, and then we'll lay our cardinals in steps. Okay, so that's the direction we're going to go. All right. Let's get started, shall we? That's enough talking. I must still be a little high. I'm talking a little fast because it's usually about 7:15. And right now it's 7:14. So I cut a minute off of my time, but that's okay. Let's get started. So find your biggest brush. If you have new brushes from the studio, you're going to want to squish those around. I'm tapping it gently in the bottom of the water cup. New brushes, when they come from the factory, they put a starch on them that keeps them nice and stiff in shipping. So you're going to want to clean that starch out of there. Just tap, tap, tap it in the water. I like to do this with my old brushes because there's a real strong chance there's a little bit of leftover paint in there, and I like to soften them up a little. Okay, so biggest brush. Let's dry that off on the paper towel. And before we get started, remember, this is not my painting. This is just an inspiration that we're going by. So mine won't look like the original. Yours won't look like mine. Yours won't look like the original. That's okay. That's the beauty of art, right? Is to go with what feels good and what makes you happy. Okay, so don't get hung up on trying to get it to look exactly like the original. Okay, let's put our trees on there first. So there are three birch trees back there. There's one on this side that's about 4 fingers wide. There's one on this side that's a little, I don't want it to be too matchy from left to right. So I want to go maybe 5 fingers wide, maybe 4 fingers plus my thumb. So I'm going to make this one a little bigger. And then I have a tree that's about 3 fingers wide right here. So big brush, dry it off. And I'm going to take some brown. Anytime you take paint, we always go in the edge, never the middle. You don't want to mess the whole thing up, right? Don't mess the whole puddle. So in the edge, I'm going to take some brown and some black. The brown by itself isn't strong enough. It's not opaque enough. So you have to add some black to it. So about 50-50, brown and black. And what did we say? My tree over here is about 4 fingers wide. Zoop. Okay. And I'm going to fill this in with that brown and black. My tree over here is about 5 fingers wide. Brown and black. I just want him to be a little thicker than this one. and I'm going to fill it in completely. And then I'm going to have one here, a little left of center that's about 3 fingers wide with brown and black. So this guy is going to be something like that. Okay, so let's keep taking brown and black and let's fill those in. So now, do you remember I talked at the very beginning about when we talked about our canvas and about painting the edges? Now's the time to decide, are you going to paint the edges? You don't have to, but you want to make that decision now and either paint them or not. You don't want to get halfway and be like, nah, right? Because that looks messy and unfinished. So make the decision now. Are you going to paint the edges or not? And go accordingly. So I think I've decided I'm going to paint my edges, which means I'm going to paint them all. Okay. And we always have the question, what color to paint the edges? I like to, whatever color I have on the front, I like to continue with that color and just wrap it on around. So I'm going to go ahead and take that dark color, wrap it on around. The only time I shouldn't say only, but one of the exceptions to this rule is maybe if I'm painting an animal and its body, like its body winds up off the side of the canvas. I'd be hesitant about wrapping an animal around, but that's a talk for another day. So I have everyone muted because that ensures that screen stays on me, that it doesn't jump around, because Zoom is funny like that, right? It'll jump to whomever's talking at the moment. So if you have any questions, just type them in the chat box, and I'll do my best to keep an eye and answer those as they come up. And this is the part where I like to remind everybody to breathe. Art should be relaxing, sometimes challenging, never frustrating. If you get frustrated, it's time to take a breath, put your stuff down for a little bit. And that happens to all of us, right? It happens to me. Get frustrated by a painting. Happens to me quite frequently, actually. But that's okay. That's part of the power, is knowing to put your stuff down. Put your supplies away if it's just not happening. So again, I'm still mixing brown and black. Just painting those trees in. We'll put color on them, but I want a nice, bold base to work with first. It's funny, I'm already looking, I'm like, my trees are so crooked. It's okay, it's nature. They don't have to be straight. So keep going, brown and black, filling those trees in. Our next step is going to be, we're not there yet, but our next step is going to be to let those dry a little bit. They don't have to be completely dry before we move on, but we're going to let them dry a little bit and work on our sky. I know we usually have the conversation if there's going to be a blow dryer moment. I don't know that we're going to have a blow dryer moment tonight. I don't know that we're going to need a blow dryer to move this along. I think we're going to be able to jump around enough to different sections of our painting that we're not going to need a blow dryer. So as we talk about this painting, right, as we talk about our inspiration painting, I guess my question to you is, how many cardinals are you going to put on there? The original has 5, but we've all heard what cardinals represent, right? They're loved ones from heaven. So you could have more cardinals if you want. I like the 5 in this painting because that's an odd number. And in the art world, we always think of odds, not evens. We do things in thirds. So you could do 3 if you wanted. You do 7. I would just probably steer away from doing an even number of cardinals. But there really aren't very many rules in art. So if you wanted to do an even number, you could. Do you like how I tell you there are rules? And then I'm like, never mind. You do what makes you happy. Okay. So I like to be respectful of everyone's time and keep us all of the same pace. So let's keep painting those trees in for about another 6 minutes. So about 7:30, we'll work on the sky. Okay. So 7:30, we'll move on to sky. That gives you about 6 minutes to fill those trees in. Again, it's just brown and black right now. Check your edges. If you've decided to paint your edges, if not, don't worry about it. But I have decided to paint my edges, so I'm going to make sure I got them. Oh, Jessica, a male. So what did you say? You're going to make a female cardinal with a male near the front branch. Look at you. I knew you would. I knew you'd have it all mapped out. I'm going to step over here and get this side. It's funny when I paint for myself, I never wear an apron. When I paint for class, I always wear an apron. And I feel naked without an apron. It's kind of weird. Okay. So when you're done, when you have the dark on there, that is your trees, go ahead and rinse that brush out. Not concerned right now about clean water. Okay. I'm going to tap, tap, tap that brush in that cup, knock the big chunks of paint out of it, and it's going to make your water pretty murky. Not worried about it right now. I'll let you know when you need to go get clean water. But we're going to move on to the sky next. And the sky, in about 4 minutes, the sky is going to be white with little bits of brown, maybe a little bit of black, tiny bits of blue. So murky water's okay. A little dirty brush, that's okay. Okay, for about 4 minutes. I'm still looking around at my peeps. I see Gretchen. I see Cheryl. Oh, there's Amanda. Hi, honey. Hi, Mandy. It's good to see you back. I feel like everybody took kind of took a holiday break. That's okay. I took a holiday break. Oh, it was good. It was nice. It was nice to have a holiday break. but man, I missed it. I never realized how much I miss painting until I pick up a brush again. And then it's like, oh, it's good, right? The feel of paint in a brush is good. Okay. So about 2 more minutes. Oh, Angie, don't make me cry. I love that. Angie just commented, I'm thinking 2 together to make a heart shape. If you look at the original, so I know people messaged me and said they're nervous about the cardinal. Oh, thanks, Lynn. Thank you. I'll get to that in a second. Hold that thought. People messaged me they were nervous about the cardinals. So if you look at them, we're going to break them down into shapes when we get there. We're going to break them down. If you look at these guys, they're just big fat raindrops, right? They're just big fat red raindrops. Look at this guy's face. Look at the black on his face. It's a heart, right? There's not a lot to them, right? If you put a red bird on a tree, people are going to know it's a cardinal. A red bird with a little crest, with a little whoop. So Lynn was kind enough to remind me to remind you before we move on. As long as all is right with my internet, it's a challenge on occasion. That just determines how long it'll take me to actually get it uploaded. We're recording tonight, and when we're done, when we're all completely done, I'll take the recording from Zoom and post it up on YouTube, on the studio's YouTube channel. So I will probably do a post tomorrow. I've not done that in a while, with a link to the studio's YouTube channel, because you can see all the past paintings there. And usually, I don't know, sometimes Sunday, I'll try to get it posted. Takes me a little bit, takes my internet a little bit to cooperate, but thanks for the reminder, Lynn. Yes, you can access this class later on YouTube. That's another reason that I have you all muted, so the screen doesn't pop around for privacy reasons, so you don't wind up in the YouTube video. So, okay, it's 7:30. Let's move on. Let's put some sky in there. So the sky, lot of white, little blue, maybe a tiny bit of brown, tiny bits, right? And if you look at the original, you can see behind where the cardinals are, I know it's hard to tell on here, but it's a little whiter, right? It's a little brighter. You don't have to, but I think that might be lovely. So if we assume that our cardinals are going to be a little lower than center, I might try to get my sky a little brighter right in here behind where those cardinals are going to go. So I'm going to take that big brush and clean it out, dry it off, and I'm going to use white. It's out of this edge of it. A lot of white, tiny bit of blue. That blue will take over real fast. So tiny bit of blue. And maybe just a tiny bit of this brown black mess right here. Little bits. And let's paint everything that is not trees. So your brush stroke, it can be, I'm doing like a chunky vertical brush stroke. I want a little texture in there. You can make your sky smooth if you want. Doesn't have to be real chunky. Oh, that got real dark real fast. You can go at it with like a hatch mark if you want. You can make it nice and smooth. Really is whatever you want it to be. When I started painting years and years ago, I started painting when I was 10 years old. I learned in oil, and I love oil because you can really see like the cool brush strokes and the cool texture in there. So I think I try to mimic that a little bit when I paint with acrylic. So white, tiny blue, tiny blue, tiny brown, black. And let's paint these two sections that are not tree. And you'll notice I'm not mixing that blue-gray color. Every time I pick up paint, I'm picking up paint the same, but that's allowing me to see these different shades of blue-gray on there, right? So instead of mixing it all in a little puddle, every time I take paint, I'm going white, little blue, little black, brown, and I'm letting it mix and show me the different shades of blue-gray on my canvas. Makes life a lot more interesting. So I don't have one solid blue-gray background. Okay. Move over to this section next. So when we're done with this part, your whole canvas will be covered. So if you decided to paint your edges, don't forget, get that to the top. Everybody breathing. Oh, it's a challenge sometimes when we're painting something new or when we're outside our comfort zone to hold our breath. Don't hold your breath. Okay, again, being respectful of everyone's time. How about 7:45? We'll move on. So at 7:45, your whole canvas should be covered with either tree or sky. And then I think our next step is going to be, we're going to play and put some birch marks in those trees next. Okay, so at 7:45, we'll move on to that. And as I paint this section, I think I want to add a little more white in through here because this is where my cardinals are going to be. I get that nice bright spot behind them. Okay. Get a little more white right there behind where my cardinals are. Let it dry a little bit. Okay. Remember, if you have questions, just pop them in the chat box. You know, there's a piece of me that's thinking about putting a little bit of orange in that background. That's something I would normally caution against because I have blue on my brush. And if I add orange, which is opposite on the color wheel, that'll give me a poop brown color. Might be okay with that. I want to try it and see what happens. You can learn from my mistakes. I have my dirty brush with the tiniest bit of orange. See what that does. Well, it definitely makes a yucky color, but I think I kind of like that yucky color. So if you feel so inclined, with that mess on your brush, the white, blue, black, brown, with that dirty brush, just the tiniest bit of orange, tiny bit. And if you decide to do this, you're going to want to do it where your sky is still wet because you want to blend it in. You don't want to lay orange on top. So I can look in the light and see where this is still wet. So I can blend in a little bit of that orange in there. Oh, that's fun. That is a yucky color, but I'm okay with that. And I'm always thinking, when I'm painting something like this, I'm always thinking 10 steps ahead. I might take a little bit of orange and put it in the bark of my trees by adding the tiniest bit of orange in my sky. That'll pull it all together. Now you can't even really see the orange that I put in there in that sky. It's so subtle. But when I add it into my bark in my trees, it'll tie everything together. So optional, you don't have to do this, but I'm feeling like playing tonight. So again, I have mess on my brush. I have white, little blue, little black, brown. And then I'm adding in the tiniest bit of orange because I know blue and orange make a poo brown color. And this is such an earthy painting. I'm okay with that. I'm sure it's probably hard for you to see where I added orange. I added at the top and at the bottom, just the littlest bit, a little chunk right there. There you go. Just the littlest bit. It's very subtle. About 3 minutes, we're going to move on. We're going to start to work on those trees. And remember, if you're feeling frustrated or it's just not going right, it's okay. Put your brushes down, just sit back and relax, right? You can refer to the video on YouTube later. Art is supposed to be relaxing and soothing, I think. Challenging, yes. But if you're starting to feel really frustrated, time to take a breather. Okay. So I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to pop it in my water cup. Not worried about getting it clean because I'm going to use some of that sky color as my tree bark. Okay. So don't worry about getting your brush really clean, and don't worry about clean water yet. In about 2 minutes, we'll move on. My trees are still wet, the dark. You can see where it's a little shiny. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them still being a little wet. You look perplexed, Jessica. I just looked over and she's like, She's like, I don't know what has happened. I've painted big ugly stripes on my canvas. I don't know what has happened. They are big ugly stripes right now, aren't they? But it's all part of the process. We don't judge it. I was gonna say halfway through. We're not even halfway through yet. We don't judge the process. We roll with it. When we get close to the end, then we start to judge and tweak and do things to it. But at this point, nope. Another minute before we move on. And do you remember how I mentioned in the beginning, palette knife? You may not have a palette knife. If you do have one though, or you have a makeshift palette knife, like an old credit card or old driver's license, even a piece of junk mail that's cut into a square, if you were going to play with a palette knife or one of those other things as a palette knife, the time has come. Oh, honey. A little bit of orange in your sky is okay though. Oh, Wendy, honey, I missed you too. I'm so glad to see you back, Wendy Jo. Okay. Let's work on those trees, shall we? So the thing that you're gonna want to do, leave the edges, right? I'm not worried about this one, the one on the left, because this tree goes all the way off. This tree's probably this big. He's ginormous. But I'm gonna want to leave the edge, this edge of black brown, I'm gonna want to leave that show. The same with this guy right here. I'm gonna want to leave both of those edges show. So it looks like he has a brown black outline. And then the same with this dude over here, leave that edge show. So I'm gonna take my big brush and I think I'm gonna play in some of that sky color. So some white, tiny, tiny, tiny blue, less blue than the sky. I might play in this muddy area right here. So white. And maybe some of this, a little bit of this mud in here. Tiny, tiny blue, brown, black. And let's work on putting some of that tree color on, okay? So I'm pulling over to that edge. I'm gonna go with the left, right. Every now and then, leave a little gap. So you have the line in that birch, and you're gonna wanna stagger those. So again, with that, I'm using my big brush still, some white, little bit of this mess over here, this brown, black, blue. Ooh, maybe a little orange, tiny, tiny, tiny bit of orange. And my brush strokes are side to side. Making sure that you're leaving little bits of that brown black reveal. And just like when we played in the sky, just like when we played in there and we had all those different shades of blue, blue, white, gray, I'm doing the same thing on these trees. I'm picking up white, and some of this fun mess color over here. So it's different every time I load my brush. And it's very streaky. I'm okay with that. Streaky is good. And remember, you're going to want to leave that little edge reveal. Oh, fun. So fun. White. Black, blue. Ooh, little orange every now and again. A bit of orange. Now, if you wanted to play with a knife, you could, right? You would use the knife the same way you're using the brush. You would go side to side. For those of you that have a knife or want to play with this, let me show you. This is optional though, you don't have to. White. I'm going to take some of this fun color. A little black. Ooh, too much blue. A little white. Got it right on the edge of that knife. And I'm going to set it down and drag it across. Oh, that's fun. Can you hear it? I think I like that maybe better than the brushes, better than the brush strokes. Oh, that's fun. That's fun stuff. I think I might continue with the knife. I'm liking that. So again, if you don't have one, stand by. If you don't have a knife, okay. If you don't have a knife, I just went to my junk mail. Find something more than paper, something that's a little more firm. This is cardstock. And I want it to be, maybe about 2 inches or so. That surface is about 2 inches. Drag it through the white. Drag it through a little bit of that color. Covering about a 1/16 of an inch deep of paint. Set it on that edge and drag it across. Oh, that's fun. I think I want some orange on there. So if I add a little bit of orange, that's going to pull in what I've done in the sky in the background. Okay. So you don't have to have a palette knife, right? You can use a cut up piece of cardstock. And I really think the more layers, the more dimension you get on here, the better. If you lose too many of your lines, you can go back and add them back in. Too much orange. Okay, I'm gonna leave that guy alone for now. I'm gonna move on to my next one, to my next, because I have 3 trees to do here, right? Can't spend all my time on one tree. Okay, so let's keep going until we have all 3 of those trees filled in. I can't decide what I like better. Do I like the knife? Do I like the cardboard? Do I like the brush? I think I like the knife. So right now we're working on just getting color on those trees. Once you have your base color on there, it might be time to rinse out to get some clean white paint. And we're going to come back and pick the bright side of the trees. So the bright side is going to be the right. So let's get this base mud color on first, right? It's very muddy. And then we're going to come back with some clean white and hit the right sides of those trees. Okay. So at that point, it would be time to rinse out, maybe get fresh water, put some white in a clean spot on your plate if you can find one. It's kind of a challenge for me, but I'll find a spot. So my reminder right now is that we are recording, and you can go back and reference this later. And you're at home, right? So you can continue to paint as long as you want. But for the sake of time, for the sake of class, I'm going to keep going. Okay. So I'm going to take, I don't know, a couple more minutes, maybe till 8 o'clock, get my base color on these trees. Then I'm going to rinse out and come back with some clean white. And we'll just keep on moving. We'll keep on trucking. Oh, that's fun. That's fun texture. Okay. Okay. So another minute. I'm going to take this minute to go get clean water, some clean white. And before I do that, I might add a little bit of orange in those trees. Just a little bit. Okay. So another minute or so, and we'll move on. Clean white, clean water. Okay. So I have the base of my trees, that dark, and now I have that medium color, that kind of muddy gray brown um, color on there. And now on each one of my trees, the bright side, let's put our highlights on. Sorry, I had to get my inspiration picture back. The bright side is on the right of each one of these. So whatever technique you've been using, let's continue on with that. I've been using my knife, so I'm going to continue on with that with clean white. Now I'm okay if that's still wet, right? So it'll blend a little bit, but let's get that nice bright white on the right side of each one of those trees. I love that it drags a little further in some places, a little less in others. It blends a little in places with some of that background that's still wet. But I'm starting at the right and I'm pulling to the left. Okay, let's do that on all three of those trees. The bright side is on the right on all of those. Now, if you've lost a lot of your dark marks in your tree, we can go back with a small brush and put them back in with some of that brown black. These trees, it's one of those things you can play and play and play. I feel like the more we put on there, the better they get, right? The more interesting they get. Let's see the right side of this one as well. And again, in the interest of time, my goal is to show you techniques and tips and tricks and things so you can just play to your heart's content. But in the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving forward. I keep saying that because I'm like, I could play with these trees all night, right? Putting more layers and more texture and oh. Which is interesting for me because I usually move pretty quickly through a painting, but I feel myself wanting to play with these trees. Okay. So now if you've lost too many of your lines, smaller brush, little brown, little black, we can go back in and put a couple of those lines back in if you need to, right? Little brown, little black. You can play in your mid-tones too with a little bit of orange, a little bit of brown. Again, these trees are something you can just keep playing with. But in the interest of time, I'm going to take just another couple minutes and then we'll move on. Just want to accentuate a couple of these lines back in. If you needed to also, do you remember how I said we were leaving a reveal so it looks like these trees were outlined? If you needed to, you could take your smaller brush with a little bit of brown black and freshen up those outlines. If you needed to, you don't have to. Okay, so once I'm done with my trees here, my next step is going to be to put that branch right across the middle of my painting, right where those cardinals are going to sit. So again, you remember how I said I'm always thinking like 10 steps ahead, already planning that out in my brain where that branch is going to go. It starts low over here, it's bigger over here, comes to a nice flat spot. So they're sitting pretty flat. And then I'm going to curve it up a little bit. Just going back and adding that little bit of outline on those trees. Oh, that's fun. Those are fun. I like them. Okay. Okay, gotta stop playing with the, I say it and I just keep loading my brush back up again. I gotta stop playing with the trees. Because the more I play, the more I like them. Okay. Ooh. Let's go ahead and put that branch on there where our cardinals are gonna sit. Starts down here in this corner. I think I'm gonna do the bottom line first, and then I'll do my top line. And my tree, my branch down here, it's gonna start about 3 fingers wide, and then it's gonna get narrower as we go up, and it's gonna end at about 1 finger wide. So let's do that branch the way we did these trees. Let's go dark first. So I have my medium brush with brown and black, about 50-50. So we'll go dark first, and then we'll lay the light on top. So I'm going to start down here close to the corner. And before I do something like this, I always like to air paint it first. So I have the paint on my brush, but I'm not even going to touch my canvas. It's kind of like muscle memory, right? I'm doing the bottom line of that branch, mapping out where I want it to go. Because I know I want my cardinals to sit right about there in that bright spot. Okay. Oh, whew, that was rough. Oh. And then brown, black. My trees in the background are still wet. That's okay. Starts about 3 fingers wide and goes to about 1 finger wide. Yeah. And with that brown, black, let's fill it in. And I'm picking up that white, gray in the background. That's okay. It's making my branch a little lighter. I'm all right with that. Okay, once we get this branch on here and we get it filled in, let's take a little breather. Let everybody get to the same spot. There we go. Yep, now's a good time for a break. I was trying to decide. I'm like, do I keep going? Nope. I'm going to take a little break right here. Okay. Let everybody get to the same spot. I think my bulldog is trying to tell me she needs outside, so I'm going to go handle that. How about it's 8:13? How about 8:20? That'll give you 7 minutes. 8:20, we'll move on. So when we move on at 8:20, we're gonna put some smaller branches on here, and we're gonna start to map out where our cardinals belong. Okay. Yep. So I'm gonna stop right there for now. Brush and water cup. 8:20, we'll move on. Oh, Lynn, sorry, medium brush. Sorry, I just saw your comment. You could use your big brush if you wanted for this branch. If you use your big brush, use it skinny ways. so it doesn't get too fat too fast. But I used my medium brush. It's what made me happy. Okay, 8:20, so 6 minutes. Okay, so about 4 minutes, and in 3 minutes, in 3 minutes, we will put some smaller branches on. We'll start to map out where our cardinals are going to live. Yep, that's the direction we're going to go. Oh, I just looked over at the screen. Everybody's really still. You guys all right? Everybody breathing? Okay, I see people moving. Okay. I'm excited to see everybody's interpretation of this. Oh, with that said, again, hope springs eternal. I would like, when we're all done, there'll come a point that I'll call this painting done, usually around 9 o'clock. You'll have one hour from the time I call this done for you to take a selfie with your painting and send it to me. You can either private message the studio or you can email me. But then all the pictures that I have within an hour, I will try to collage them together and put them together as a group photo. I said earlier, hope springs eternal. I tried to do that for the last couple classes, and my Facebook was being weird. It wouldn't let me download pictures, but I think we got that resolved. So you'll have until, let's just say 10 o'clock. You'll have until 10 o'clock to send me. I love to see your faces in the pictures. So snap a selfie of you with your painting and send it to me by 10 o'clock. And then I will collage those together and put them out into the social media world. Okay, another minute. And we're going to put some branches on there. And then we're going to start to map out where our cardinals are going to live. So the way we did the trees with the dark and then layering the light on top, we're going to do the cardinals the same way. We're going to paint those black first and then layer the red on top. The paint that I'm using, you may not have the same issue I have, but the paint that I'm using is student grade acrylic paint. We love student grade acrylic paint because it's relatively inexpensive. We can buy it by the bucket, right? I can supply everybody with paint. The thing we don't like about student grade paint is it's very transparent. All the colors are very transparent. So while it's inexpensive, they have essentially watered it down a little bit to make it go further, but it makes it a little more see-through. So to get those solid red cardinals on there, we have to make a decision. We have to either paint them black first or white first, and then let that dry and then put the red over top. This painting, as deep and rich as this painting is, I'm going to paint them black first. And then that way, like my trees, they'll have that little bit of black outline, that little bit of dark outline around them. I think doing them black first, it's going to help add to the richness of the painting. So let's tackle this way. Let's put our primary branches where our cardinals are going to live. Then we'll put the base layer, the black, down for our cardinals. While we're waiting on our cardinals to dry, we'll add some more branches and we'll play a little bit. You can play in the trees a little more if you want. And then we'll layer the red and the faces and things on our cardinals. That's how we're going to finish this out. So let's use a smaller brush and put the branches where we want our cardinals to live. Let's map this out, shall we? So now you can use either your pointy brush, so like a number 3 or a number 5 round, or you can use a medium brush. If you use a medium brush, use it skinny ways. Sketch with it skinny ways. Don't sketch with it fat ways because your branches will be too fat. I'm really liking my, my medium filbert brush. So I'm going to use him, I think. But I'm going to sketch with him skinny ways. Again, it's whatever branch makes you happy. Okay. So I think the first thing I'm going to do with, and this is all going to be with that brown black, I'm going to put my two, I guess there are 3 offshoot branches off of this main branch. There's one that comes up this way, comes up this direction, and my cardinal sits right beside him. There's one that comes down this way. And there's another one that comes up this direction. You have these 2 branches that kind of come up and around and hug my 2 cardinals. And then I'm going to put a branch up here for one to sit on, little branch over here for one to sit on, and one down here for the background cardinals to sit upon. I'll add more to the branches later, but I'm just mapping out the lay of the land right now. So medium brush, again, use your small pointy if you want, with brown and black. If you're using a medium brush, use it skinny ways. And this branch, he's going to come off of this one and he's going to come up and kind of curl. Come up this way, kind of curl. And this branch, I'll give him the same treatment that I do to this one. I'm going to put some white, and then I'll do the same thing on this branch, on this offshoot right here. Not right now, though. Again, just trying to get the lay of the land. So now I know I'll have a cardinal that sits right here beside that branch. Brown and black, I want to pull one here that curves down. A little fatter toward the closer to the tree, and then get skinnier as you go out. And then I have a branch right here that separates, it kind of separates this cardinal from his tail. If you look at it, his tail is on one side and his big raindrop body is on the other side. So it starts right about where this tree, my background tree, and my sky come together. So there. It may seem odd the way we're doing this, but again, this is helping me get the lay of the land. Now I know my two cardinals are going to go in between these two branches. And one here and one here. With that same brush, I'm going to put a branch up here that a small cardinal is going to sit upon. I'm going to start on my tree. So now I know I have a lovely spot right here for a cardinal to sit. This one's kind of hard to tell what's going on in the background, what branch he's sitting on. I'm just going to make an executive decision and pull a branch off of this tree, give him some place to sit. Sometimes you have to do that. Executive decision made. And then one more down here. Again, I'm not worrying right now about my offshoots of my branches. I'm just putting the base there so I know where I can have them sit. I have created a little roadmap for myself. And then I'll give you a couple minutes. We're going to hang on to this brush because now we're going to use this medium brush or small brush, whichever makes you happy, to put the dark, to put the black down for our cardinal base work. So how about 2 minutes and we'll get ready and put our cardinals on. Not sure what's going on. So I have a special needs bulldog, and she's being quite special needs this evening. Oh, she's like a kid, right? They don't want you until you're in the middle of something. And then that's all they want is your undivided attention. Okay. So how about another minute and a half or so, 8:30, and we'll break those cardinals down. Do you feel like we started off the new year with a challenging painting? Everybody feeling that tonight? You guys are doing great. I can't see what you do. I can't wait to see what you do, though. I'm excited to see how your paintings all turn out. Okay. Okay, let's talk about cardinals. So we're just going to break them down. We're going to break them down into shapes. Okay. Let's talk about this guy right here that's facing us, this big guy. He's just a big fat raindrop, right? That's all he is a big fat raindrop. We can go in. Oh, Andrea, we're not to that stage yet. Gert doesn't wake me up in the middle of the night to spend time with her. But she does feel pretty needy when I'm in the middle of something and she's not involved. God love her. It's what you do with special needs babies. So a big fat raindrop. When we put the red on, we'll be able to give the idea of where the wing goes, and we'll put the face on. Okay. But right now we're just breaking it down into shapes. So this guy, big fat raindrop, and his tail is behind the branch. Okay, let's do this. So again, whichever brush makes you happy. I'm going to stick with this medium filbert. He makes me happy. Well, he makes me happy until I try to do the point of his head and can't. But for now, he's making me happy. So medium brush or small, whichever. If you use medium, remember we're going to use it skinny ways to draw with. And I'm going to start with this guy that's facing forward. And just black. And you can always start small because you can make him bigger. But it's really just a big fat raindrop, and fill it in with black. Big fat raindrop. A little bit of my tree color is pulling. It was still a little wet. That's okay. Or my sky maybe. That's okay. If it's a little gray, you just want to make sure you have that nice solid base. Because if we tried to just put red on there right now, you'd be able to see the blue right through it. It would look very, very weird and very transparent. Okay, and then tail feathers. And the tail feathers are behind the branch. If we pick the right side of him, skip the branch, we're going to follow that same line. So this, skip the branch, it's going to go this way. Looks silly right now. It'll all make sense later. Okay. Okay, there's number one. So number two, let's do his body the same way. Big fat raindrop. And his bottom sits right into that branch I put on there. Kind of hugs that branch. Oh, this one's going to be a little smaller. That's okay. I know those of you that have painted with me before, you've heard me say it, right? I think that's the defining moment of when you know you're an artist. It's something happening that you didn't plan and you're like, I'm all right with that. Being okay with it and not trying to control it. Okay. And then this guy, his tail feathers kind of follow the branch off to the right. Again, we're just in black right now. We'll let it dry and put the red over top. Yeah. Woo, 2 cardinals. Oh, we have to do one more thing to this guy on the right. Almost got like super excited. I'm like, woo, we did it. No, if he's going to be facing sideways with black, we have to give him a little bit of a swoop where his beak is going to go. Just a little bit of a swoop there because he's facing sideways. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my smaller brush for the 3 cardinals in the background. And they're essentially the same way, right? So I have my pointy brush because these guys are smaller. I have this dude up here. He's looking very raindrop-ish with his little tail behind, little tail feathers behind the branch. Little dude over here, same thing. Very raindrop-ish. Little tail feathers behind. And you see, I'm not taking near as much time with those because they're in the background. It's just the idea of birds. We'll just put a little bit of red on them and it'll all make sense, right? And then this guy down here, raindrop. And tail feathers. Go. Okay. So let's let those dry now. Let's go back and work on our branches. I think maybe the first place I might start, I think I'm going to work on with some brown and just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of black with my pointy brush. I'm going to play in these branches a little bit, giving my birds time to dry. Okay. So tiny, tiny bit of black, more brown this time. And I say more brown because that brown is so transparent and you want these smaller branches to kind of disappear. So I'm using more brown than anything else. Okay. And let's go on and accentuate some of these branches a little bit. That one. That one. By this point in the evening, I'm finding my paint is a little sticky. So I'm adding just a little bit of water to it, just a tiny bit. That'll help it flow a little more. You can do as much or as little as you want on these little branches. So let's work on that. The brown black first, or mostly brown first, giving some little twigs on all those branches. Then we'll come back once we have all those little twigs on there. We'll come back and get some light on this biggest branch because we want him to look like he's part of that birch clump there. Okay. I always find I need to stop before I overdo it, before I get too many. Is there such a thing as too many branches? I don't. Maybe. Who knows? Okay. So now let's put some light. Let's put some light on the top of this branch. So I have my medium brush, some white, a little bit of this mess in here, this brown, blue, black. Remember, you're leaving that reveal show on the top and the bottom. I think I'm just going to go ahead and I'll wait until I have my light on here, and then I'll go back and put some brown marks back on it. I'm going to run some light up this branch a little. Just let it fade off into nothing. So white, a little bit of that muddy mess. Down into that one. I might even run a little bit up that one. Nice. And clean out and get some little clean white right on top. Add that bright spot like we did in those trees. A little bit of fresh white right on top. And then a little bit of brown black. We'll get a couple birch mark lines on there. Just a couple. Again, we know we can play with these trees forever, right? The more layers you add, the more interesting they get. But in the interest of time, we got to keep moving forward. Oh, fun. So at this point, I'm looking at my black in my cardinals, and I'm smoothing out any big chunks. You can do this with a brush. You can do it with paper towel. You can do it with your finger like I am. I'm smoothing out any big rolls of black paint that might stay wet for a long time. Just smoothing them out a little bit. Because it's really easy, especially with black, if your lighting isn't the best, it's really easy to have a roll of black paint there that when you put the red on and you drag through it, it'll just turn everything super duper dark. So I'm going to continue to play in my branches a little bit, but taking a moment to smooth out any rolls of black paint that we have in those birds. Okay. Okay. I think we'll take a few more minutes, let those birds dry. I think I'm going to get a smaller brush and play in those branches just a little more while I'm letting my birds dry. Get my my brush holster here. Ooh, there's a small brush. So I went to just a smaller brush. This brush only has a couple bristles in it, but adding a couple really fine twiglets at the ends of those branches. You don't have to do this, but again, this just makes it a little more interesting. And I'm playing just a little bit, waiting on those birds to dry a little more. Okay. Okay, so the time has come. The time has come for the birds. If your black is still really wet, might blow dryer it. Okay. Because if you start to put red on top of that black and you drag through the black, it's going to turn your birds really dark really fast. A little bit of wet black is okay, the tiniest bit, but too much and you're going to know right away. You're going to have to abort plan and go to the blow dryer. Okay. So let's see, I think medium brush. And just like everything else we've done tonight, we're leaving that little bit of dark reveal around them. Like we left the dark outlines on the trees. I'm going to leave a dark outline on my birds. Okay, so medium brush, clean it out, dry it off. And I'm just using red. And I'm going to start with this guy that's facing me. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a heart in red. It's really hard to see, but that's where his face is going to go. And then I'm going to paint everything red around that heart. Now you may feel, as you do this, you may feel your red is still way too transparent. If you're feeling that, let it dry and give it another coat. Okay. Don't try to put so much red on it the first time around to completely cover it the way you think it should be covered. Just put a nice thin coat on, let it dry, and then come back to it and do it again. So let's do bird number 1. We'll move on to bird number 2. And then our little guys. And by then we should be able to come back and get another coat of red on this guy. Again, we love student grade paint. We hate student grade paint. Leaving that little heart shape right there for his face. Okay. There we go. Oh, I'm going to get his tail feathers. Okay, now this guy, he doesn't have a heart that faces forward. He has half a heart. Close. Just half a heart there for his face. I think when I come back to my second coat on these guys, I might add a little bit of orange. But not till my second coat. Let's do the first coat that's just red. Oh, tail feathers. Okay. Then let's do the little dudes. Again, we're not putting a whole lot of detail into the little dudes because they're way off in the distance. But we will know with these two big guys, we'll know those other red birds are cardinals, just like the big dudes. Got one more dude down here. And remember, as you fill them in, the tail feathers are behind the branch, right? Don't put the tail feathers in front of the branch. You need that break. Okay. Okay, now another coat of red on this guy. If your red is still way too wet and you're not getting the bright color that you want, let it dry. Let it dry and come back and hit it again later, okay? Or go to the blow dryer. Let's see, I think I'm gonna add a little bit of orange to this guy. If you decide to add orange, it should be for a highlight on the top and the right side. I got outside my line a little bit. We'll fix that. Ooh, look what that second coat did. That made him much brighter. Okay. Oh, fun. Fun. Okay, let's see. Fix his outline a little bit. Because we're coming down to it. We're coming down to feet. I think the only one that you can see the feet is this guy right here that's facing forward. Beaks and eyes. I think I'm probably going to move on to beaks and eyes, and then, well, feet, beaks, and eyes, and then decide if I need to add a little more red. Give that some time to dry. Okay, we're down to those fine details right now. But I want to come in real quick and fix this line. I got outside I brought the red out too far. There we go. Okay. I'm going to add a little more red to my little birds. When you're ready for beaks, same rule applies with Same rule applies with the orange that applies with the rest of our colors. Forgot what I was going to say there for a minute. The orange is very transparent. So when you're ready to put those beaks on, probably mix a little bit of white with that orange. Not there yet. I'm going to put a little more red on these background guys, these little guys, to brighten them up a little bit. Oh, forgot his tail feathers. Little dude. Okay. So let's take a little brush and let's put beaks on there. The beaks are in the black. And I'm going to mix a little bit of white with some clean orange. That'll make it less transparent. So clean white, 50-50. And I'm using my little brush. And let this guy that's facing us, give him a triangle, big fat triangle. And then a little, the bottom part of his beak. It's like a little tiny bottom lip. Leave a little separation. Boop. There we go. So that big triangle for beak. Leave a little separation, then give him a little tiny bottom lip. Blurp. While we're there, I'm going to use the other end of that little brush in some white. And give him, because he feels weird with no eyes, give him two little white eyes. While I've got that, let's go ahead and give this guy an eye. Zoop. Let's give him a beak. We're seeing his in profile. So it's a nice big triangle. And don't forget the bottom part of the beak, just a little tiny blurp. And then he just has that one eye. We're just seeing the side. Okay. Guys, just the idea of little beaks. I just gave him just a little orange swish. Give him just a little swish. He gets a little swish down here. Whoop, there he is. You can decide if you want to give him eyes. I don't know that I'm going to give him eyes because they're so far off in the distance. You know, maybe just the tiniest little speck of an eye. Because now they feel funny. Now that I said I wasn't going to give them eyes, they feel funny without eyes. Tiny, 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 tiny little bloop. Okay. Ooh, we're getting down to it. We're getting down to details, little fine details. I'm going to make his black a little bigger on his face. His black part face got a little small. It's better. Okay. So fine details now. Here we go. Little brush with a little bit of black. let's give him like the idea of little toes. So a little claw right there and one right there, like 3, and then 3 this way. The idea of little feet. If you want to get a little more detail, you could give him the idea of wings. I think this guy, you're only going to see the wing on this side. So I have my little brush with a little bit of black. Just give him that little line right there. You know, I feel like he needs one over here too. There we go, the idea of wings. Trying to decide if this guy needs the idea of a wing. I feel like maybe right there. You can always cover it over if I don't like it. I think I'm going to put a little bit of white on top of those toes. They look a little too intense just being black. So I added just a little bit of white right on top of them. And with that, I do believe we're done. Oh, 9:01. That got intense near the end, right? Woo! I love it though. I very much love how it's turning out. I think I'm going to let these dry a little bit and maybe give them one more coat of red to really make them pop. I think. But for the recording, I'm going to go ahead and say a couple things and we'll finish up here, and then I'll stop the recording and give you the chance to unmute yourself if you want to talk for a little bit. So the last thing an artist does is signs their painting. That's the very last thing you need to do. And you don't have to sign on the front if you don't want. I think it's nice if you sign on the front, but you can sign on the back if you would rather. If you sign on the back with a paint pen or a Sharpie, never here. It could bleed through. If you're going to sign on the back, sign here where the wood is, okay? But I have my handy dandy paint pen where I always sign with my paint pen because I'm really bad at signing with a brush. I think I'm going to sign right down here along this branch. There we go. S. Oh, first painting of 21. A little tick. 21. There we go. Done. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining me for episode number 1 of 2021 of Painting Through the Pandemic. I'm Shauna Sue from Crooked Door Studio. This has been great. This has been good for my soul. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you so much.